We want to welcome you here to our session this morning. This is Lync Deployments Observations from the Field. We've got a crew of us up here. My name is Brian Nice, joined by my colleagues Amit and Pramal. We'll give you a little introductions here in a few minutes. But we definitely want to thank you guys for popping in this morning to this session. What we're going to cover here, this is a fun session because it gives us a chance to kind of provide some feedback to you guys about what we've seen collectively from deployments that have happened out in the field, both the before, the during, and the after picture, right? So being able to see lessons learned from planning stages, lessons learned from deployment stages, lessons learned from supportability stages, right? So we want to be able to kind of give you a little bit of insight into some of the lessons that we've learned and some of the pitfalls that we've seen with regards to Lync deployments. Now, this is a 200-level session, right? So we're not going to go down in the weeds and start talking about all kinds of deep technical stuff in this session, which is probably good for the first session after the attendee party because we don't want to stress you out too much, okay? But after you have your coffee and all that good stuff, you can come to my HADR session after that, and we'll make up for it in that session. So our objectives here are to talk about some of these common observations that we've seen and identify some of the lessons that we've learned during these Lync deployments so that as you're starting to embark on deploying Lync, you can avoid some of the challenges that we may have seen. A couple of key takeaways that I've put in here from a overall perspective. Probably the biggest theme of all is this fact that Lync itself isn't a siloed solution, right? Going and deploying something like email, something to that nature, it's more of a siloed type solution. Well, Lync isn't, right? Lync goes and touches all different areas of your infrastructure because of the different modalities that we have, right? We have to be able to deal with telephony folk, networking folk, the Windows Server folk, the storage folk, and so on and so forth, right? So we can't look at it as a silo, and that's going to be kind of part of the theme that we go through throughout this session. We want to make sure that we're approaching all these different aspects of Lync as a solution, not as a point product, right? So we'll get into that as we go throughout the deck. But we'll take a couple of minutes real quick to introduce ourselves. So again, my name is Brian Nice. I live in Mission Viejo, California, which is Southern California. I've been with MCS, Microsoft Consulting Services, for about 3 years now. I've done consulting work for over 15 years. Started back in the, well, technically I started back when we did the IAM and Presence pieces in Exchange 2000 that they kind of put into that fun little nugget. And then went from LCS on through. Our official organization is the Enterprise Communications Center of Excellence. Great name to have. That's why they don't give us business cards, because it doesn't fit. I'm a certified master and a certified solutions master on 2010 and 2013, and also help develop and teach the master's curriculum. And you can see in the upper right corner there, in my spare time, I like to play drums. My parents were very patient. I don't know how they did that. So anyway, that's me. I'll turn it over to Amit.
Thanks, Brian. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah. So as Brian said that, and when the introduction slide. So I saw Brian's slide. I said I gotta put some slides similar to where Brian is coming from. Though I didn't want to put the winter picture. So this is the summer of Whitby, Canada. I didn't want to put the white thing that we are covered under right now. So yeah, but that's where I come from. So tomorrow, in fact, I will complete my 9th year with Microsoft. So his 21st birthday. That's nice. So I've been with Microsoft since 2005. Yeah, and before that, it has been the unified communication journey. Before that, I was also working with one of the amazing compete and vendors. So that was good days. But since Microsoft, it has been live communication server and then so on. And now we have Lync 2013. That's my wife and my little one. And then I enjoy cooking and, yeah, delicious food. It looks delicious in the picture too, but yeah, it's amazing.
Did you make that dish?
Yes, I did. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it breaks my heart it's not there in the food menu, but yes, that's what I am, yeah. And I'll hand over to.
The only problem is there's no meat.
No, yes, it's not meat, it's vegetarian, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Sorry, I got to poke fun at him.
So Ryan will not be there for that dish
Yes,
then.
no, yeah, I'll pass.
You guys can hear me fine. We have only 2 mics, so I'm going to use this one. So My name is Premal Gandhi. I'm a Senior Supportability Program Manager with Microsoft Enterprise Communication Support. Been with Microsoft 5 years now. Before Microsoft, I have been in unified communications for about 10 years and worked all the way in systems engineering to development to designing to systems engineering. So kind of experience all over, and then Microsoft gave me the opportunity to interact with you guys, learn from customers what their pains are, worries are, and address some of those. So that's what I'll be sharing in this presentation, so stay tuned. On the personal side, that's my daughter, 1.5-year-old, one of my most favorite hobbies to capture all the beautiful moments that we have together. And so that's one of the pictures there. Love to travel a lot, so seen a lot of North America, most of Asia, most of Europe. And next on my list is South America. So anyone here? I think I missed my email address there, but if you have any action-oriented and adventurous trips for South America, email it to me. My alias is Premgan, which is PREMAN, PREMGAN at Microsoft.com. So, thanks. Over to you, Brad.
Thanks, sir. All right, so let's deploy Lync. I oftentimes get this from customers where they basically get a hold of an architect or what have you, and they say, fantastic, let's go ahead and deploy this Lync thing. Wait, what is it? What does it do? Oh yeah, it's just kind of like Skype, but for business, right? That's usually what I end up in here. So what is this Lync thing? How do my users use it? And if these questions can't be answered, you're not ready to deploy Lync, right? You're ready to get something out there that your users aren't going to be prepared for. And being able to understand what a rollout looks like is critically important. So when I'm working with customers, and some of the observations that I've seen is, first off, realizing, do you know what you're getting into with Lync, right? Do you know what Lync is? Now, oftentimes when we talk with customers about doing deployments, we see rollout effort distribution that looks like this. We focus a lot of time on the core technical deployment and planning activities. My vernacular for that is the nerd knobs, right? All the different nerd knobs that we can turn and figure out how many pools do I need, how many servers in a pool, what's this fabric thingy, how do I do DR, what about gateways and and we focus on a lot of this technical stuff, which is important. I don't want to say that it's not. But oftentimes the end user focused planning and activities kind of take a back seat to that. And we're so focused on let's get this in a proof of concept, let's get it in a pilot, let's get it deployed, that we forget, why are we deploying this? What problem is this going to solve? Or how is this going to make my end users more productive? Right? Because at the end of the day, as you'll see in a few slides I have a little later, to me as an architect, when I'm building a solution, a positive end user experience is a metric that I have to measure myself by. Because if the users don't like it, the users don't use it. The users don't use it, the project doesn't succeed. Right? So we end up with a typical rollout timeline that looks like this. We want to try to change some of that thinking. Right? We don't want to be this. We're ready to begin the next phase of keeping things exactly the way they are. That's not what we want to be. Right? And I've been involved with a number of deployments where customers have said, well, I do it this way, and I want to do it that exact same way, but I want to use Lync instead. We go, well, wait a minute. Maybe that's not the best avenue to take. A classic example that I had came in the voice world, where I had a customer that was upset with me because they couldn't figure out how to do speed dial in the Lync client. They're like, where's my speed dial? I'm like, what? Well, speed dial for what? Well, I want to be able to press a button and just have it call somebody. Really? That was an idea of, well, we're keeping things exactly the way they are. We're just trying to use a new solution. That's not what Lync is, right? Lync has feature sets that can solve that. Sure, we can do frequent contacts and all that good stuff, but it's a paradigm shift, right? There's a different way of thinking about what a Lync solution is, right? It's not a PBX, right? Lync isn't a PBX. We provide functionality that's similar to what you might find in the PBX world, but we're not a PBX, right? We're not just these different modalities that we have. We are an end-to-end solution. We are a platform. Right? And that's part of the mindset that we have to get into when we're doing these deployments, is not forgetting that extra component. Right? What is that end user rollout going to look like? What is that adoption going to look like? Because I can architect the best looking Lync deployment ever on Visio, right? And you can get it all built and have all the servers up to spec and all that stuff. But if the users don't know what it is or how to use it or how it makes them productive, it's not going to be a successful project. So we want to change the mindset to look like this. Notice how we don't now have that end user focused planning activity as more of a, kind of an afterthought in the bottom right corner. It's actually pulled in and integrated into the core technical deployment planning activity piece. Because that end user focused planning activity, that has to drive how you're going to do this core technical deployment, right? You may learn things during your end user adoption and end user rollout that will affect the way that you've designed and architected and built your Lync environment. So let's focus on those folks, the end users, the final frontier, right? Positive end user experience is key for me, right? Again, at the end of the day, when I'm working on projects with customers, I want my users to embrace the solution at hand. And in order for them to be able to embrace it, it has to be something that they enjoy using, right? It has to be something that makes them more productive. It has to be something that doesn't require a manual this thick for them to figure it out, right? We have to be able to have our users prepared properly. So what are some ways that we can make the end user experience be a positive one? Well, one of the easiest ways is to raise the appropriate awareness level. Right? If the users aren't aware of what we're doing, we're going to likely not have a positive end user experience. Right? So a user goes home on a Friday, they show up on a Monday morning, and all of a sudden they have this Lync client installed. What is that? What happened to my phone? Or what happened to this, or what happened to that? And it's kind of a shock for them, because now they immediately think, oh, how am I going to get any work done? I don't know how to use this thing. Right? It's not intuitive to me because I'm used to picking up my handset and dialing all these different digits to reach somebody. I don't know what I'm looking at. So we want to make them aware. Make them aware of what the purpose of the solution is. How does it relate to their productivity? Right? What can they do better? Again, as part of my deployments that I do with customers, I get asked all the time, how do I do this particular step in Lync the way that I used to do it on my old PBX or my old conferencing system? Right? Wow, I'm used to dialing into a conference, so what's the bridge number that I have to call into? Okay, I noticed you have an iPhone. Yeah, that's great. Oh, so it's a Lync conference. I noticed you have a Windows phone. You can have a Lync client on that, right? And just one-click join. Or just speak into it, on the Windows phone, and it'll join, right? Different way of thinking about it. They're not aware of it, right? They're just used to, oh, I got to join my conference. Let's dial all these digits and hope I don't wreck while I'm driving my car. So we want to make them aware. We in turn now need to give them education, right? They need to know how to use this thing. For certain folk, depending on the generation that you sit in, right, you may be able to look at a solution like Lync and go, this is intuitive to me. I get it. Or you may come from a generation where you look at it and go, I don't know what does this button do? I'm not, get out of my computer, right? As we kind of heard earlier, somebody IMs you, go, get out of my computer. What are you doing in there? It's like, no, it's just relax. It's okay. So giving them the education that they need. And probably the most critical one for me when I'm working with customers is define your use cases. You cannot go into a project and say, yeah, we're just going to deploy Lync. What are you going to use it for? Yeah, kind of, IM and presence, probably some conferencing, maybe some voice. Okay, that's not use cases. That's modalities. That's features that the product offers. But what are your use cases that you're going to define? Do you have boss admin scenarios that you have to deal with delegation and scheduling of meetings, right? Do you have folks that use mobile clients? If they use mobile clients, what are they using? Do they have data plans? Do they have unlimited data plans? Do they have, all of these things become part of the use case structure that you build. And that essentially becomes your roadmap for how you can get to this positive end user experience. Because if you put the solution together and it maps to your use cases, the use cases map to what your users do day in and day out, makes them more productive, makes your project more of a success. Right? That's one of the key goals. Now, to be able to help with this, we've put together a component known as the RASC, or the Readiness and Adoption Success Kit, which basically outlines these 5 phases that you would look at as a foundation for Lync deployments. Some of these phases may look very, very familiar to you, right? Project scope, POC or proof of concept, pilots, enterprise rollouts, run states. I have to say, in my experience, proof of concept and pilot are often used interchangeably, right? Oh, we're doing a POC. Oh, yeah, we're doing a pilot. And they think they're the same thing. They're not. A proof of concept is fundamentally different from a pilot, right? As you can see, a proof of concept is all about testing these specific technical infrastructure scenarios in a controlled lab environment. Right? That's the idea of a proof of concept. I want to see if this thing works the way that I expect it to work. Maybe I'm going to integrate it with my existing legacy PBX or something of that nature. And I want to test to make sure that it works. That's proof of concept, right? My concept is sound. When I connect it to the PBX, I can make a call, I can receive a call, life is good. Now we move into the pilot stage, and this is where we get solicitation from the users, right? What is it that you're trying to do with this solution? What are your scenarios? What resources do you have? What tools do you have? What processes do you have to wrap around that? Supportability processes, right? Help desk, things of that nature. That's done in production. That's done with your end users. That's done with a careful selection of end users, which we'll get into in a little bit, right? Then you get into this rollout stage where you start broadening the reach, right? Not many customers are going to deploy, say, a 60,000 seat deployment overnight, right? They're going to stage it. We're going to get a subset of people out first. That's our pilot group. And then we're going to add more people into the pilot. And then we're going to continue this enterprise rollout phase where we're going across departments, across user groups, whatever makes the most sense for your organization. And then we can't forget about the run state, right? What do we do after we get this thing deployed, right? Lync is not a set it and forget it type solution, right? There is ongoing maintenance. There's adoption, driving of adoption that has to happen as part of a deployment rollout stage, right? So we have to consider, how is that all going to work? How's that all going to fit in? Now, if you take these 5 core phases, inside of each of these 5 core phases, you can kind of break down some subcomponents. Now, these subcomponents don't necessarily apply to every phase, but they're a good set of readiness areas to focus on, right? The planning, the help desk, the awareness, the training, ops. These are critical pieces that have to be sorted before we just fire up the CD and put the DVD in the drive, next, finish, right? It's a Microsoft product, right? So that's pretty much how we deploy things. Next, finish, and hey, it should work. You know, not quite. So getting the timelines laid out, having a proper project plan in place, getting the help desk prepped, right? Because what happens when they call into the help desk and the help desk goes, what is this? Lync, when did we deploy that? That's not good, right? We want to have that sorted out ahead of time. So it's all brought together as what we call the 5x5 approach, right? We've got the 5 core phases, and you have the 5 subcomponents that can basically fit into any or all of the phases above. Like planning essentially has to go through all of these, right? Project scope, proof of concept, pilot, help desk stuff, right? Awareness, that's all being front-loaded on that side, right? Training and operations is more into the enterprise rollout and run state phases, right? But the key point here is to understand that there is a framework to help you with this. And if you go to the Microsoft Download site, you can pull up the RASC and has all of this detailed information in it. We have templates in there for like sending out email blasts to your users saying, hey, you're going to get onboarded to this. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you can do. Here's where you can go to get trained, and so on and so forth, right? So who do you put in the pilot? Oftentimes, what does it turn out to be? The IT guys, right? They're probably the worst guys to put in the pilot, right? And that's no offense to them. It's the fact that IT guys are a different breed, right? And IT guys don't necessarily have the same use cases from the business side that your admins would have, your help desk folks would have, your end users would have, right? So when you're constructing your pilot, you need to get a good cross-section of your environment. Figure out that broad spectrum of skill levels. Get people from a variety of roles, right? Don't just focus in on that sales executive. No, get the sales exec, get the mobile workforce, get the information worker, get the boss, the admin, get all of those various folks, get a good representation of that. People that are enthusiastic. It might sound silly, but it's good to get people that are enthusiastic that will provide you feedback, right? If you throw out there, hey, you want to be in the pilot? Yeah, I guess. Maybe not a good person to put in the pilot, right? Because you want to make sure the whole point of the pilot is to get good feedback, right? Get good information back into the system so that we can refine it when we go to the rollout phase. Target the workload and scenarios, right? That's part of your planning. You know what workload you're going to do. You know what use cases you're going to do. Make sure you have people that are actually going to test those use cases, right? Don't get into the situation where you're ready to do enterprise-wide rollout. And, yeah, we never tested that. No, that needs to be defined as part of your pilot. Find your Lync champions, right? The folks that are driven to utilize this solution, that are going to make this viral in your environment. Something I've seen a lot in the Lync world is when you get it deployed, it easily goes viral on its own, right? Folks use it, they like it, they talk about it. Other people go, what is that? I want that. I want to do that. How do I do that? And, oh, yeah, and it just goes like wildfire, right? Remote users with higher technical skills. Always good to have those as well, right? IT folks oftentimes fit into that to cover that technical gap, right? But we want to make sure that we're covering the breadth as best as we can. To help plan for this pilot, we want to have a proper plan, and we want to assemble the right team. That team doesn't just consist of the Lync folk, right? It's got to be the Lync folks, the sysadmins, the network admins, the help desk people, the operations people, the support people, all those different areas that you have to deal with from Lync as a solution. We've got to get that team built together. Right combination of users, all focused on the user's experience. Because like I say, at the end of the day, if it's not a positive end user experience, they're not going to want to use it. And now your solution is going to sit there and gather dust, right? Detailed communications and set expectations. Users don't like surprises. They just don't, right? So they want to know when something's happening, and they want to know what's expected of them when it comes to them, right? What am I supposed to do with this thing? And if I'm supposed to do something with it, am I supposed to provide you feedback? Where do I go to do that, and when do I need to do that? And the RASC can help you provide all these kinds of communications, right? MSIT does a great job for us of sending out these emails that very clearly let us know that something's coming, right? That we need to go do something. Sometimes it'll be like, this may sting a little, right? And you know that something's going to go down when you get one of those kind of emails. So, but it's communication, right? We set proper expectations. It's no different when you're doing a pilot for Lync. Set those proper expectations so the users know what's coming. And ask for that feedback. Don't just ask for it. Read it, consume it, and then provide improvements based upon that feedback. Right? It's nothing worse than getting those champions in there to give you feedback and then going, that's great. And just kind of moving on doing what you're doing. Right? Take the feedback that they give you. That's good feedback. Maybe we need to make some adjustments to that, maybe some adaptations to that, and so forth. These are our resources, the RASC. Great place to go, right? The RASC is specific to 2013. There was a 2010 version of it. I totally spaced on what it was called. It wasn't called the RASC. It was called like the Deployment and Adoption Success Kit or something like that. So there's a version of this for 2010. The RASC is what we call it for 2013. So the Rollout and Adoption Success Kit. So you can see, templates for communication, sample surveys that you can send out, training content on how to do the various tasks, the basic tasks inside of Lync. This gives you a great starting point. You can likely customize it as you need to, right? But it gives you a great baseline to start with. And that's critical from a user perspective to get this going. There are deployment readiness reports you can run out of RASC so that you can see, are things up to snuff? Are we ready to roll this to a larger population, a larger set of the user population? There's a rollout workbook. There's printed awareness materials if folks like to actually have the touch and feel, right? So lots and lots and lots of good resources in the RASC. So if you haven't had a chance to go look at that, I've got links later in the deck for it, or you can just bing for RASC for 2015, and you'll be able to see all the cool stuff that's there. But that only gets us part of the way, right? That's a great lessons learned on the user side, which is a critical component, but it's not the only piece, right? There's a piece that sits underneath that called the infrastructure piece. So I'm going to turn it over to Amit, and he's going to take you through the infrastructure components and how that's going to affect us from a lessons learned.
Thanks,
Sure.
Brian.
Thanks.
So, and guys, feel free to have a question. So we're not just kind of keeping it at the end. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in between. So as Brian pointed out, that some of the key components which are very, very important for a successful Lync deployment. And this is what we have seen people go down those paths, either when they run into some kind of an issue. So we wanted to make sure we give you some kind of information that when you go to your customers or when you are deploying, if you follow these critical steps, you're going to have a very, very successful deployment. Now, when it comes to the infrastructure piece, what kind of personas? So before I jump into personas, how many of us who are in this room are aware of something called as the bandwidth calculator for Lync 2013? That's good. Thanks. Quite a good hands. So these are not the personas that we use in the bandwidth calculator. So they are different personas. So when we say personas, means executives, your Lync admin, your infrastructure admin. Whenever we go and talk about Lync deployment, we have to make sure that they treat, especially the voice admins, the network admins, they should treat you as their buddies. They should not treat you as somebody who is barging in their territory and risking some of the job that they are doing. We want to make sure we take all of them together. Tell them that this is a solution. This is not just a product that we're going to deploy. It depends. It has its own components. It has dependencies. It is dependent on AD. It is dependent on DNS. It is dependent on various infrastructure needs. So we have to get all these personas together and then go ahead and main thing is executive presence. I mean, executively, it's a sponsorship. Yes, they want it because if executive wants to understands that my network or security guys are not ready to open X amount of firewall or whatever be the security policy requirement, and that is causing me some of the revenue that I could save if we do things differently. If executive tells those guys to make it happen, things happen. It's not that they are just leaving and say, we're not going to listen to you. So you have to make sure that you make a point about security, about network, about infrastructure. And that brings us to a very important piece, which is network. That's the one important piece that as the very first point mentions, Lync is only as good as the underlying network. I mean, you can take the world's best sports car, and if you run it onto a road which has a big path holes, it's not going to run properly. It's going to get damaged. People won't have the best experience. So you need to know, is your network ready to accept that much amount of the traffic that we're going to pump in? And even if we are going to pump in that much amount of traffic, whether it's a wired network or it's a wireless network, many a times we don't think about wireless. We will always talk about what's your LAN, what's your WAN look like. We don't think about, okay, this is a premises, which is a big building. It has a couple of, I would say some floors belong to that company, but there's a heavy density of population on this floor. Maybe 200 people or maybe 300 people on that floor with some amount of access points. And how many times you have seen people walking into the conference room and plugging into a network cable and saying, oh, I want to make a call. Let me just plug in my network cable. No, they are Wi-Fi. They fire up Lync. They say, oh, I want to make a call. I want to go into the conference. All Wi-Fi. So we have to be very, very mindful about the fact that how we're going to tell our network guys, hey, folks, Lync is an amazing sports car, but it needs a nice road also. Give me a nice road. So and what is the requirement? Now that comes, you might hear a question back, what do you need from me? How much bandwidth you consume? How do we control that? So all these things are the one that you have to go and think about it. Not only, as I said, just wired, for wireless, for external people, for internal folks, people who are going to use mobile clients. So this is where the network education comes very, very important. You can go ahead and have a wonderful deployment of X amount of servers of Lync, do a wonderful pilot, a POC, everything works fine. And if you don't think about your network requirements, a single bad call ruins entire experience of Lync. So people don't want to use it. They think that the product is bad, the solution is bad. It's not the product, it's not the solution. It's what is causing it to go bad. So that's very important, very critical. So for the networks, what we got to do, there are different sites, brand sites. And most of the time when you talk to your network, customer's network team, oh yeah, we got it covered. We have quality of service up there. Or we have sufficient bandwidth. We don't have to go ahead and test anything. We have it. Trust them. It's okay, fine. I agree with you. That's wonderful, but let's verify it. Let's do some basic testing. And many a times you'll find that, oh, that brand site is not marking QoS traffic properly. And that brand sites were pretty important. We had some leadership folks also sitting over there. But then it's like trust, verify. Do the site service. How many brand sites? What type of link you have? How many users? And when users, what are they going to use Lync for? Is it just going to be some I am in presence thing, or is it going to be conferencing requirements, video, voice? Go ahead and just go and do deeper in that type of communications. Be proactive. Tell the customers. Ask them, when they give you their network diagram, which is like a very high level MPLS links or whatever it is, go deeper into it. Look at the brand sites. Most of the time, corporate sites and big data center sites are covered. The issue comes from the brand sites and the WAN connectivity. Go talk about it. Tell them, ask them how many users are there, what type of how many mobility users are there. So do that because that's going to give you a lot of information which you can go back, use it, analyze it, and come back and say, hey, these are the requirements. These are the things that we need to make Lync as a successful deployment. I'm sorry. Okay. And this is network, as I said, network readiness. There are bandwidth planning exercises. It's not that you got to first go ahead and test, because in our network assessment, we do some, it's a kind of a 4-phase thing. You kind of plan, discover. You do some theoretical exercise to figure out how much bandwidth is going to use, like with the help of a bandwidth calculator. So once you figure out this is theoretically, this is how much we need, you got to go ahead and verify it with the simulation piece. That's network readiness. You also you have to be very peculiar and very careful about quality of service. Whether it's there, whether it's not there. If it's there, how it is marked. What is marking? How much QoS is available for the real-time traffic? How much is the marking or the bandwidth available for the non-real-time traffic? And network readiness assessment, when we say completed, means you go back to your customers and say, hey, with this assessment, looks like out of your 10 sites, 8 are fine, they can handle the load, but 2 we have to be careful about. So you have to come up with creative solution, not to say that, no, you cannot put Lync on there. No, because 2 sites, they have crappy bandwidth. No, you cannot do that. No, come up with some creative ideas. Come on, tell them that, okay, we can try enabling few users to begin with. Look at how it's performing, how it's behaving. And then maybe you can go back to your management and say, we need to invest either in the bandwidth, either to upgrade the network equipments, or maybe come up with some Lync inbuilt solutions like call admission control to control the amount of traffic between these 2 sites. So come up with those creative ideas, because once this is done, once you nail this thing down, you could be very relaxed and pretty sure about that your Lync experience for the end user, which Brian talked about in his slide, it's all about end user. It's going to be amazing, and people are going to adapt it. People are going to love it. So network recommendations, there are some tools or tips that you can ask your customers to do that even once you do all the assessment and you deploy. There is a pre-call diagnostic tool. There is a trip tool that you can go ahead and check I don't want to go into deeper into it, what it checks, which probe, which ports it goes ahead and does send some packets and check the bandwidth, blah, blah, blah. There's a link available. You can go. It's a complete, read-up available. You can just go ahead and play with these tools. It gives end user a confidence. Sometimes when you are in, like, for example, you are in this ARIA resort, and you want to fire up your link, want to make a call. But before that, because it's just that 1 Mbps connection usually when they give you on this place, and if you want to go 1.5, they charge you. That's amazing to see. But when you want to make sure that the quality is good, you can fire up the tool and see how is quality going to be on this unmonitored hotel Wi-Fi where thousands of people are using that. Just fire it up so that you have the mindset that it's not going to be good quality, because quality is all in your mind. If you know that I'm at a place where it's not going to be, you're ready to accept it. And you can just test it out, verify it, and go ahead and execute the stuff. And with the network Wi-Fi white paper available, networking guide available, as I said, Wi-Fi, do not forget Wi-Fi. It's a really, really important piece. And we have a white paper available. What are the things that you should be careful about, how you should be, for access point, what should be you should be looking at if you are placing an access point, and how much Wi-Fi connections you are expecting. Once you have all this covered, you're going to have a wonderful experience for the Lync. That's pretty much for the infrastructure piece. Now, I'm going to go ahead. Do we have this supportability? Sorry, service level agreements. I mean, this is service level agreement. Let me just cover sort of a minute on it. It's about even if you go back to the network portion of it. If your service providers are having an MPLS cloud, etc., what kind of a service level agreements you have with them? We have seen personally in my one of the cases, what we saw was customer was marking perfectly the QoS packets for the real-time media, but the MPLS provider, moment it went to the MPLS cloud, it was demarking it. So the quality of the calls was really, really bad because there was no QoS marking on it. So how we verify that? We had to do the trace. We got deeper into the weeds. We just figured it out. And then we figured out that they didn't have any SLA for the QoS packet to be marked with the MPLS provider. Get into your service providers. Get those agreements going. So if you have that understanding, because they could be saying, oh, we have a WAN, we have wonderful, everything is good. But then when you go into the weeds, you figure out that, no, you don't have it because you're not paying that much amount of money to them. And if you want this thing, make sure you get the proper service level agreements done. That you're going to have to mark the packets end to end. Should not be when you enter my network, boom, it's gone. It's just as good as some other data packet. With that, because it could, and when customers go deviate around some of the stuff, when they don't follow what is recommended, it ends up in a supportability issue. They'll go up and make a call. Hey, this is not working. Fix this thing. And then when they call and want it get fixed, there's where Parimal comes into the picture, and then he'll talk about what is the supportability things that we can work on. Oh, you have it? Nothing. Oh, just click here. Click here.
You guys hear me fine? Okay. Yeah, so thanks, Amit. Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about, how to do things right and what should be the procedures to follow. But as we know in real world, even though things are supposed to happen in a particular way, they don't. And so you guys have to call us. And with this session, or this part of the session, I actually want to just give a quick intro on supportability first. When we say supportability, what we mean is it's in terms of what and how, right? So the what is, we need to find, what are your key pain points, what are your worries, what things keep you up at night, right? So that's the what part that we want to find. The how part is, how do we work internally to resolve some of these things that keep you up at night? And so in this session, my agenda really is 3 things: A, B, C. A, analysis, and share all that analysis with you. How do we find the top issues? What are the top issues? B, share the best practices based on the analysis of these top issues. And C, how do you connect with us? How do we keep the connection going? So that is my goal for this part of the presentation. So let's dive in. So what are the top support issues and risks that we have seen through cases that we get from all over the globe, across Premier, across professional, one-time incidents that you pay for? We've kind of brought it all together and want to give you a view of what we think are the 3 most important things to keep in mind in respect to the rollout phase, right? Brian talked about the use cases, the user scenarios that you want to start with. In support, what we have done is we've taken a scenario-focused approach, and we have come up with some common use cases, like which you see over there. The top issues there listed are pretty much customer scenarios. Sign-in is a very real-world experience that a Lync user has. Communication with federated contacts is another real-world experience that they have. Advisory issues are more towards how-tos, where we engage with the admins, or this is the user education piece, right, where we have to educate users for certain things. So those are the 3 areas in which we have, we've seen most of our volume. And when we talk about learnings, our approach with learnings, I mean, definitely our first and foremost thing is that we want to solve your issue as quickly as possible. However, not everybody gets up in the morning with the dream of calling support. So we realize that we need to give you some, we need to provide an experience where even sometimes without calling us, you can solve the issues on your own, or you can learn more about the product through some of the tools or content that we can share. So with respect to sign-in, what we have seen is there are 2 kind of user scenarios, which is one is the persona of the admin who's trying to set it up right so everybody can sign in correctly. The second persona is the end user who's trying to sign in either from his mobile, across all apps and services basically that Lync has. An example of that would be an iPad user trying to sign into Lync Online, which is using the iPad app and using the Lync Online service. So across apps and services, there are several combinations of sign-ins. And so what we try to do with this guided walkthrough, and I will quickly share a view of that. So what you're seeing there is the guided walkthrough as you walk through the link that I have provided. For the admins, it catches issues. What we have done is we have identified all the core root causes for these areas, and we have shared all of that through this guided walkthrough. That okay, as we see new root causes for issues, more top issues, and we add it to this workflow. And so this is one of the examples where we found licensing was an issue at some times where admins were not configuring the right license. And so that's why we were having sign-in issues. So we added that to the guided walkthrough. Other issues that we see with admins are DNS records. And so we have I have provided a link over there for automatic creation of DNS records. So basically through the Microsoft Online portal, you can automatically create all the DNS records that are required for Lync to sign in properly. The other thing that we have learned is that even though all the settings are done, sometimes issues are internal to the network and not actually based on the server-side configurations. And so we launched the tool called Lync Connectivity Analyzer. You might be familiar with the remote connectivity analyzer. Initially, when I joined support 5 years back, that was a tool that I developed and helped. The main scenario was that we wanted to help admins set up the edge correctly, and so we were looking at the remote connectivity part. But as we analyzed more and more data, what we found is that it's not always the server configuration. Sometimes it's the client-side configurations or the networks internal. And so we developed this tool which actually runs you through each and every phase of the sign-in process and actually tells you where the failures are happening. And this could be internal to your network. So this tool is available to you to address that top support issue. Now moving on, I need to switch back. Sorry about that. The next area is communication with federated contacts. Basically, these are issues where either you cannot see presence, either you cannot send an IM to your federated contact, you cannot join a phone call with him, or he cannot join your meeting. These are some of the scenarios or use cases that fall within this area. What we've done, we analyzed this area, and we found out certain common themes that actually cause problems. And what we found is the setup seems to be the main area that the problems occur. And so we've provided a guided walkthrough for federation. To set up online external communications. The check over there shows one of the key things that we have found in support, that we have to continuously remind admins and users that you guys do need to set that setting correctly, and depending on that setting, your federation will be enabled correctly. The other part that we have observed is that join meeting scenarios, so that's one of the key checks in federation that we found out. Moving on. The next thing we saw is join meetings is kind of, there are issues with complication around joining meetings, and so we are working on 2 more guided walkthroughs. One of them is for end user persona, where how do you set up the audio video before a meeting, or how do you set up your audio video to have a successful Lync meeting. So that guided walkthrough will be released very soon. All these guided walkthroughs are part of our Lync MD series, where our concept is that we want to teach our customers and partners how to fish, right? We don't want to, sometimes we don't want to fish for them, we want to give them a tool to fish for themselves. And that's, so all of these tools and guided walkthroughs are part of the Lync MD series, which is on Next Hop. The link for that is included in our deck. So you can keep in the loop, and we will keep you updated as we'll know more issues or if any new root causes come up. The last part is advisory or how-tos. We get a lot of how-to cases. How do I move my users to the cloud is one very trending topic that we are seeing in support today. How do I set up PSTN connectivity? What kind of devices are qualified? What kind of reverse proxy is qualified to work with Lync? Those are common. Which is joining a meeting anonymously supported when I'm using iPad and connecting to a hybrid environment? Is that supported? Those are common questions we keep getting. And so what we've done is, if you see over there, we share 3 links over there. One is we share the link for qualified third-party devices so that you can make the right selection of devices when you are deploying a Lync solution. Second, I've shared the procedures from TechNet, and especially the known issues, because when you are deploying a solution and you have a use case that is not currently supported, then I think it's important for you to know beforehand proactively that yes, there are certain caveats, and be very well known about it. You want to move the user to the cloud, the TechNet provides you detailed steps on what you should do to move a user to the cloud. Then the last one that we did was supportability across Lync apps and services. We have a supportability matrix that tells you exactly which scenario is supported on a particular app and a particular service. The service examples are on-prem, online, hybrid. Apps examples are iPad, mobile, like Windows Phone, desktop. So across the combination of apps and services, what are the scenarios that we support? What are the caveats? We've documented all that through that article. Now let's, I'm going to take a little step back from, in the last 2 points, I'm going to take a little step back, that these are all, great that, things have gone wrong, and, these are top things that you should definitely have as a cube note. Maybe you take a picture, stick it up your cube, or, bookmark it, whatever. But then the last 2 pieces are really a change in direction that we are having with support. That we want to solve the problems that you tell us, like we want to be pinpointed in terms of solutions that we give you. So you tell us what scenario you have a problem in, and we will give you a pointed solution for it, rather than, give you more links and, different things. So that's one area we are working on, which is the Targeted Solutions Lync MD, where we analyze certain customer scenarios and give you a troubleshooting procedure or a guided walkthrough, right? And why I say targeted solutions is because I'll share a quick picture here that this is what we call a targeted solution. You come in, you select the problem, you have in Lync Online or Lync On-Prem, you select the service area, sign in, presence, or IAM and contacts. What scenario within that? What use case is your customer experiencing? And we give you a targeted solution that says, yes, if you're having this problem, go to this particular piece of content so that, on an ongoing basis, we can improve, and at the same time, you can always learn. And I mean, we've already seen deflections up to 20% in calls by, customers just getting targeted solutions when they are trying to submit a support case. So that's one area that we are concentrating on with targeted solutions. The other area for targeted solutions that we are looking at, and basically we are getting good results here, is two problems we are trying to solve with forums. First, we want to have a community with all you guys here as you connect with each other and as we connect with you, so that through forums we can find out what are the top trending issues. And basically we had some really good successes that I'll share with you. And the other point is that after making a community with you guys, I also want to make sure that we can address some of the top issues that are coming up in forums, either because there are lots of replies, either because it's voted as, it has 100 votes compared to anything else. So we are using those kind of stats to kind of, come up and provide better targeted solutions. So you can see over here where our forums were distributed over several disparate areas. We've now reduced it down to these core areas or specialties so that you guys, our customers, partners, MVPs, and also our support engineers can all work in these specific specialty SME areas and actually resolve issues. I'll give you an example. We had a sign-in issue with iPad, and it used to happen because one of our qualified reverse proxies, the IIS ARR, had an issue. And we released a hotfix, we got it posted, it was on the forums, and we saved a ton of calls with that. Because as people were directed to the sign-in forums, and they were asked to apply the hotfix to resolve this issue, that particular sign-in issue with iPad was resolved with basically all you guys helping out here. So that's our idea, that we want to make a community where you guys can come together, and that's why we have reduced it down substantially, and we have actually correlated it with support areas. So the support specialists are also on those areas. That's one way we are trying to apply targeted solutions to this. So the last part. So A is done. We've looked at the analysis and what the analysis results in. We've shared the best practices that you can leverage to address some of those top issues. Now is part C of my presentation, which is connections. How do we connect? How do we engage? And as I talked about forums, MVPs, we're working on engaging with the MVPs also on a monthly basis. So that will be a good, but forums are already there. We listen to you through support cases. A lot of the fixes that have come recently, like the presence issue that happened with Outlook, like in a meeting not showing up in Lync, we resolved it in quick time with the November update. So basically, we want you guys to engage with us, right? Forums, support cases, and the one key thing that I want to kind of end this thing with is any guesses? What's one of the most common troubleshooting steps that you see in support when you call in? So I'll tell you one of the common. I think once I say that, it'll be like aha. But we do ask you whether you are on the latest update or not. We are in faster release cycles. We are fixing things fast, and we do expect that some of your issues are already resolved, and as they become top issues, we resolve them quickly. So keep your updates going. We have shared the link where we have in the prior slide. I shared the link where all the updates are available across apps and services. So leverage that, keep updated. I think that's the one thing with which I'll end this note. And yeah, keep engaged with us. Last point, I would just like to see if you guys have any issues or concerns that you guys want to raise that you have not seen us already identify. Anything we can do to make things better? Sure.
Just, I don't know whether it's pre-deployment or what, but in terms of estimating the amount of time and labor, obviously size makes a difference in whether it's enterprise deployment, but do you have any guidance in terms of how much, what duration of a deployment should take on average?
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, my favorite answer as a consultant, it depends. So no, and truly, I mean, I say that jokingly, but it does. There's a lot of factors that come into that, right? So a lot of times, what you look at building, and a lot of what partners and folks like us here at MCS have done, is build out this reference architecture, right? That gives you kind of that baseline that you can go from, so that you can understand that when I'm doing a 20,000 seat deployment, and I look at the timetable for that, I realize that trying to do a 20,000 seat deployment in 2 weeks probably isn't going to cut it, right? So a lot of the timings come around understanding the use cases that they have, the modalities that they're going to be using.
So let's just pick something. Pick something.
Okay.
And then say what would be a reasonable estimate.
So I can talk to you offline about that. I mean, I can't give you if it was voice, you would be 8 weeks. I don't know. It's just too variable with the amount of components that we have there.
Yeah, so for that, and just to add what Brian said, what we have done internally, MCS folks, we have, as Brian talked about, the reference architecture, and we have seen how much on an average duration would take to deploy X amount of central sites with voice, with conferencing, and with Blur. We have some numbers churned out internally, but that is known as a product line architecture. So for that, it's an offering. So if you want to engage, you get in touch with your local AMs. They can bring in the MCS folks. Let us know. We are the voice center of excellence. We can also get your local area MCS engaged, and they can tell you about this is how much it's going to cost. Product line architecture. It's an internal MCS IP right now. So when you engage MCS, we come back, because it's a kind of a set of rules that we have laid down that you got to do this, and it's going to take that much amount of time accordingly. And as I said, there are certain variables. Customers might have some requirements that I want to stand up maybe 25 brand sites. I want to stand up with, say, maybe 2 central sites geographically in different continent. So all these things, there are various variables that come into the picture, but we have some generic idea, keeping in mind that if this is XYZ, that is how much it's going to be.
So is the MCS available to business partners, like other
We have business partners. So business partners can engage MCS, and MCS can share that IP with you guys. Yeah.
I think I'll just add one thing to that is, as Brian started it depends on user scenarios, right? What are the most important use cases for your company? And accordingly, MCS can actually build that. So I mean, even the RAS kit would provide you some input, but it's difficult without actually getting the details of all the use cases. So just a quick show of hands. I wanted to know how many of you guys are kind of focused on online deployments versus kind of on-prem or hybrid deployments? Or
what you're seeing?
Yeah, like more online focused folks?
No, it's more on-prem.
On-prem? Okay, good to know. That's about it.
Yeah, another question here. Go ahead.
Is there, in your support offering, is there a place to submit feature requests?
Yes, actually, the thing that I was explaining through the forums is the forums are what we monitor, and you can submit a support case that says, you have a design change request, and you can go that route as well. With forums, we expect you to garner some support from your connections over here, that the forum thread shows up as a high replied thread or a high voted thread, and then we'll take that into consideration. An example is, I think I saw on the forums, you guys wanted control so that you have corporate pictures show for all the users in Lync, right? Some of the stuff that I saw on the forum. And we did submit a feedback request on that admins need that control, that all the users should show their corporate pictures, which we don't have right now. So yeah, I mean, we are listening those channels.
Yeah. Just to add, for the recording purpose, repeating your question. So the question was, is there a way you can submit a feature request? Okay, thank you. Just for the recording.
Yep.
Yeah, there's one more question. Please go ahead.
take that. So basically, when you go to our support portal, which is support.microsoft.com, and you look at the different problem areas that we have, they're all scenario-based, and they will give you a list of, I want to say 100 different use cases, partitioned by the key areas like sign-in, voice, conferencing, manageability. So you should be able to get a quick look at the use cases. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just a couple things to wrap up. One other thing on supportability is, where can we get some of this, right? Where can I get some help? And one of the offerings we have is an offering known as Premier Lync Support, which gives us the capability, right, of being able to offer, a lot of the things that we've been talking about up to this point, right? Being able to say, hey, I need support for my specific environment, and again, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the cloud, whatever, don't care, right? It's a solution, it's a platform. I need support, I need help. One of the offerings we have is Premier Lync Support, which gives you that choice of being able to get the layers of support that you need for the type of deployment that you have, right? And being able to do things such as, our offerings like a RAP as a service, right? Or our RAS as they call it, right? And being able to have these service level offerings that can take a look to see if we are ready, right, for Lync, and doing readiness adoptions and so forth. All part of this Lync support offering that we have. And being able to get that solution support, right? Because it's not just Lync, right? We have product support level services. We have end-to-end components that we have to deal with, right? We're dealing with third-party gateways and things of that nature. So how do we kind of bring all of those pieces together? And the Premier Lync support offering is a great way to do that. There were a couple of other sessions throughout Lync Conference where this was discussed much more in detail. So if this is definitely of interest to you, you can grab the recordings of those, or you can all just grab Adrian in the front row here, and he'll give you all the gory details of it. I hear he buys free Starbucks for anybody that asks him questions. So not used Starbucks, free Starbucks. That's great. So. Great. And I kind of want to wrap up with this slide, which kind of encompasses the whole journey, if you will, of what we learn from Lync deployments. And it's stay within the lines, right? The more that you stay within the supportability guidance that we have, right? The more you stay within the architectural guidance that we have, the RASC readiness guides that we have, the more you stay in line with that, the less likely you're going to end up and call guys like Premal, right? And have these type supportability issues. Not that that's a bad thing. We all like Premal, right? But if you're going off the edge and doing something really funky and some weird config and some duct tape and bubble gum and twine and whatnot, you can expect supportability to become an issue, right? Or manageability to become an issue. Or worse, you could box yourself in to where you go, wow, this solution worked really well. Hey, the next version of this product's coming out, and guess what? You can't get to it because you did this, and that doesn't work to get from point A to point B, right? You're going to have to undo that ball of twine so that you can get yourself back into a supported state so that you can get to the next rev of the product, right? So that's kind of the sum up is stay within the lines, right? And that's why a lot of firms have, like from the MCS side, we have these reference architectures because that provides that framework for the deployment model, right? So we can be consistent. We know not every customer is going to be a cookie cutter, right? So we can't slap an offering together and say, okay, if you're going to deploy Lync for 20,000 people, it's going to be bang, and that's it. And make it like a la carte and just pick off the modalities. That's not how Lync works, right? On the flip side, it's not terribly complicated where we have to spend 2 years deploying, the solution. But we want to have some kind of starting point, and that's what these reference architectures can provide. Folks like MCS, folks like the partner community that we have, provide these reference architectures as starting points, but also provide these reference architectures as the foundation for supportability, right? Because the more that we can stay within the lines, the less likely we're going to have the wheel fall off, and all of a sudden we start turning the wrong direction and things fall apart. And that brings us to time of Q&A. I know we've done some questions throughout the session, but if you have any other questions, comments, anything of that nature, jokes, those are great too. So, yeah, question.
I think one thing that's kind of iffy is the whole question mark equals SL. What is it? SL equals 1, the little.
Yeah.
Can you guys put that in an option where just send it out on the meeting link?
Yeah, so to repeat the question, this has to do, a very specific question has to do with the meeting join experience. And It essentially has to do with the fact that when you go to join a Lync meeting, it's a web URL, a web request that we make, and it will automatically launch the Lync client if you have it installed. There's a workaround that you can use by putting $SL equals at the end of the URL that effectively forces you to go into the Lync web app, right, and utilize the Lync web app. And a lot of the reasoning for that has been around the join experience from clients that try to get into organizations that are federated or not federated. There's all kinds of technical nerd knobs we won't go into for this, but essentially it boils down to an inconsistent join experience. Whereas if we end up with $SL equals, or $SL equals 1 if you want to get really specific, you're consistently going to go into Lync web app. So there is discussion around how they're going to tackle that. Right? I don't have any information that I can pass on to say which route they're going to go, whether they're going to embed it differently. Don't know. They're well aware of it. Right? There's another feedback engine I want to mention very quickly. It's called the Skype Experience Engine. So a question had come up earlier, and bummer he already left, so well, too bad he doesn't get his answer. So the Skype Experience Engine is also a place that you can go to submit this type of feedback. Right? And the great thing about putting feedback into an engine like this is we stack rank it based on the number of times we've heard this request, the number of seats that are impacted, and so on. And it gives the product group extreme visibility into what are the pain points my customers are experiencing. Right? And a key example of that, you'll hear it in my next session if you go to HADR, was we had a lot of customers asking us about SQL always-on availability groups. Why don't you support that? The documentation for SQL everywhere says mirroring is going away. Come on, support availability groups. That was stacked rank number 1. And we fixed it, and it's coming to the product. That was directly because of the feedback that we received in the Skype Experience Engine from our partners, from our consultants, from our customers, saying, you need to address this, right? The one that you're mentioning with meeting join experience, it's in there, right? It's in the Skype Experience Engine. It's being stacked ranked. They're working on it. So that's the feedback engine that we're utilizing. It's been quite successful, and as Pramal pointed out, it leads to that. The ship cycle is reduced now to where we don't get these requests and find out, okay, yeah, that's something we're going to work on for 12 to 18 months down the road. It turns out, yeah, we know that's an issue. It's coming in the next CU. And 3 months later, boom, it's there. That's the type of agile model that we're getting into. So that was a very long-winded answer. I apologize. I don't have a direct, yes, we're going to do it this way, but we are definitely well aware of it, and they are certainly working on, they're certainly working on how to optimize that.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. Yes.
I think Brian really covered it well. The thing about when I said the connections part of the presentation, right, that you could connect with us through support cases. The Skype Experience Engine is open internally for external folks. I think we have a tap program by which you can provide your input. But irrespective of that, as I shared the connections, forums, support cases, this was one of the things that we derived from support cases actually. That we're getting a lot of cases on joint meetings. That's why we're doing a guided walkthrough. But at the same time, we put the feedback into the Skype Experience Engine and kind of working to improve that experience.
Yeah. For the TAP, what just Parimal said, TAP is Technology Adoption Program. It's for the early adopters of the product that is not even released yet, which is kind of getting into the beta and all pre-beta stuff. So customers can get that, work on it, and give us a feedback about how the product is behaving. So that's a TAP, what just Prim will talk about.
We like letters here at Microsoft. Yeah. We like lots and lots of letters.
Yes.
It's always good. It's great.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Thank you for that. That's fantastic.
Thank you. That was a good point.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Could you please comment on the benefit of using split tunneling for remote users, and if it's just a timing issue, or if there's something in addition to that?
Sure. The question is, can we comment on using split tunneling for users? For those that are not aware, split tunneling has to do with when you're using VPN solutions and you VPN into your corporate network. Split tunneling basically means that there's a segment of traffic that you don't want to ride over the VPN channel. We most definitely recommend that you do not push your Lync traffic over the VPN. And the reasoning for that, it's twofold. One, the architecture that we've built in with the Edge server and how media traverses Edge, which we had a session on that the other day, is built to be able to optimize that media flow without requiring this VPN piece. But the main reason we say not to do it is VPN adds overhead that is not aware of nor cares about the fact that it's real-time traffic. right? So we send voice packets over VPN. The VPN just sees it as ones and zeros on the wire and chunks it wherever it sees to chunk it and encrypts it and sends it. Real-time traffic doesn't like that, right? We don't like to have, and that will impact your call quality experience, without a doubt. So from a supportability perspective, we don't say, hey, it's not supported to run it over VPN. If you want to run it over VPN, you're more than welcome to. Be prepared for the call quality problems. And from Lync's perspective, there's nothing we can do to fix that because the VPN is causing the problems because of the extra overhead. Right? So that's why we would recommend split tunneling and take the Lync traffic, push it out through the edge services and through the reverse proxy. Let all the rest of your corp traffic go through VPN because that's definitely important, but take the real-time traffic out.
Yeah, and just to add to that, VPNs, why, and one more point, like encryption is absolutely, which adds to the delay. It can cause latency and all that. But when the VPNs were designed, when the company implemented VPN boxes and the concentrators, they didn't implement it to keep in mind that they would be running real-time traffic across it. So they don't have that much amount of buffer and that much amount of processing to let the real-time traffic go through it, because they implement it for people to just come through a VPN and use the other line of business apps. So if we want to run real-time traffic through it, if VPN concentrators were not built for that, that's an issue. But if they want to implement a new VPN concentrator and they make, or you can say, take a provision of real-time traffic, Lync can still give you, we can say, acceptable quality. But just that's the reason we say that we want to respect your investment, deploy split tunneling, so that you'll get that optimized experience.
Yep, sure. Last little bit too is Lync already encrypts traffic, so you're encrypting encrypted traffic. It's kind of redundant. So
absolutely.
that certainly doesn't help.
It's like double security, triple security, whatever.
Yep. So we threw a couple of related sessions up here. I shamelessly self-promoted my next session, which is the HADR session. Making users raving fans of Lync, right? That's a much deeper dive into the RASC component that we had talked about earlier. That session happened yesterday, so you can catch the recording of that. Why adoption matters, the key factors in maximizing ROI, customer sat, right? These are some great follow-on sessions to the topics that we've talked about throughout this entire presentation, right? So what we tried to do here is take you in a quick, hour and 15 through this idea of getting these deployments, these lessons learned from the beginning, from the planning, from the adoption, all the way up through supportability. So I want to thank you guys for your time. We'll be hanging out here for a few minutes if you have any other questions. Please don't forget to fill out your evals and all that good stuff, and thank you again.
Yeah, please don't forget the evals, guys. Thank you.